Was it? The 202? Oh, it's
30-second warning.
Steak salads at home last night with our own faces.
Good morning. We'll now call to order the September 27th meeting of the MAG Regional Council. Thank you for joining us. For those around the table, please turn on your microphone when speaking. For those participating via Zoom, please state your name when making a comment or asking a question. The MAG public comment process allows members of the public to comment under items under today's agenda or that fall under MAG's jurisdiction. If you would like to comment at today's meeting, please fill out a request to speak card located in the information table in the hallway and give it to MAG staff. If you parked in the garage, parking validators are available on the information table in the hallway. If you purchased a transit ticket to come to the meeting, please see staff for a ticket. Hearing assisted devices are available from MAG staff. We will now begin the meeting with a roll call of all members.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the Regional Council, I'll go down the list of members alphabetically. Please unmute and indicate if you are present. Mayor Beck. Mayor Bien Wilner, Proxy Vice Mayor Scott Moore.
here.
Thank you. President Burnett.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Crane.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Daniels.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Dickey.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Gallego.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Giles. Thank you. Supervisor Goodman. Mayor Hall.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Hartke.
Here.
Thank you. President Javier.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Hermosillo. Mayor LaVault.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Governor Roe Lewis. Mr. Mack.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Molina.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Morris.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Osborne.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Ortega.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Peterson.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Pizzillo.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Rodriguez.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf.
Present.
Excuse me, Mayor. Supervisor Sellers. Mayor Sykes.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Smith.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Walter. Mayor Wires. Mayor Weiss. Mayor Weiss. Mayor Wheatley.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Wilson.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Woods.
Here.
Thank you. And just checking one more time, Mayor Schoaf. And Mayor Weiss. Is there anyone that I missed? Thank you, Madam Chair. We have quorum.
Thank you. Item number 2 is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our next item is call to the audience. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that fall under MAG's jurisdiction that are not on the agenda or that are on the agenda for discussion and not for action. 15 minutes will be provided for the call to the audience and we have first, let's see. So we have 5 speakers, is that right? All right, so we will begin with Deborah Kirkland, followed by Cadron.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Deborah Kirkland, and I currently live in Mesa. I'm a recent former dual resident of Los Angeles and New York City, and I'm a current visa holder to China. I have worked in China for several years, and what I have learned is that I do not want my city or my state to resemble the lifestyle of a communist country in any way. I am here to express my opposition to the carbon reduction program. Years ago, I voted for a similar carbon reduction program in California, believing it would make a difference to the environment. But it actually became a policy by the city and state to bring money from the federal government. After a while, it was apparent that it was intended to gain control and impose regulations to make people comply and actually pay for charges they didn't vote for. These decisions were made by local governing bodies, such as yourselves, who made critical decisions for the masses. The carbon reduction program was a first step ploy used by the federal and state government to transform cities to an ideal communist city. In case you're not aware, I brought a copy of a book, or actually I bought the book called The Ideal Communist City, in case you would like to take a look at it. There's a lot of the programs that we're trying to bring to the state of Arizona, I think is a little dangerous. The Ideal Communist City, published in 1968. If you adopt these changes, you will make the residents suffer. You may believe it is a good way to get money from the federal government to make necessary improvements, but I can promise you that they will end up controlling you. Neither our Arizona grid nor our infrastructure is ready for an influx of EVs. They use a ton of energy, and change and charge will put a strain on our existing grid that it cannot handle. I know utility companies have given EV customers better rates to change overnight, to charge overnight, but they are already concerned about blackouts. So I would I would hope that you would consider not to implement these charges, because my bills tripled 3 times in California. Thank you so much. Can I leave this book with you? Have you guys seen this?
Cadron is next, followed by John.
Catherine Atwood? Karen, Cheryl? Yep, sorry. Sorry, the second day was like a day.
Hi, I'm Karen Cheryl, and I'm from Cave Creek, Arizona. And I'm just here to tell you that I am highly opposed to the carbon reduction plan item. Both of the suggestions are bad. We should not be funding electrical vehicle charging infrastructure, and we should not be spending money to electrify our buses. Cities across the country have rejected or changed their minds about electric buses because compared to standard buses, they're significantly more expensive, have less range, cost more money to build chargers and charge them. They have a shorter lifespan, and the maintenance is more frequent and more complicated, increasing the risk of standing more people in 115-degree heat next to a broken down bus. This is a bad investment we will regret. It'll cost taxpayers a lot of money, and it will impact our electric grid. MAG should be focusing on better planning for roads and freeways, not coming up with ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions so we can get money from the federal government. Thank you.
John is next, followed by Ryan.
Council, thank you for your time today. Anybody here know what a Navy CB is? Yes. You're looking at one right now. Removing Americans from their vehicles, thus their freedom to move about, et cetera, et cetera. This from an Epoch Times piece updated 25 September 2023. Meteorologists, scientists explain there is no climate emergency. And the alarmist messaging pushed by the global elites is pure political. That's what 1,609 scientists and informed professionals stated when they recently signed the Global Climate Intelligence Group's World Climate Declaration. Quote, climate science should be less political, while climate policies should be more scientific. The declaration begins, scientists should openly address uncertainties and exaggerations in their predictions of global warming, while politicians should dispassionately count the real costs as well as the imagined benefits of their policy measures. The group is an independent climate watchdog formed in 2019 by Emeritus Professor of Geophysics Gus Burkhout and science journalist Markel Kroc. Other notable individuals quoted in the piece: Chaim Ben-Arroyo, Distinguished Professor of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering; Ralph Alexander, retired physicist and author of the website Science Under Attack. He said the climate emergency is fiction. Edwin Berry, physicist and certified counseling meteorologist, quote, the belief that human CO2 drives the CO2 increase may be the biggest public delusion and most costly fraud in history. The piece has a multitude of information from other scientists, etc. I ask, do we seek truth anymore? Or is it all about censorship, deception, power, money? In my humble opinion, this is a waste of money, which Americans and America is broke. For many years, a great individual often asked, okay, regarding the great North American glaciers, which cover New England across the Great Lakes in 1,000 years, this was 1,000 years ago. How and why did they melt?
Thank you.
No humans, no carbon, no SUVs, no nothing. Thank you so much.
Ryan is next, followed by Diane Barker.
Good morning. My name is Ryan Boyd. I am a resident of Phoenix. Grew up in North Phoenix, now living a little bit around here. Apologies if I'm a little bit fast. I'm skipping out for lunch, so I'm trying to get back to it. And honestly, it's a tough thing to come down here, right? And that's one of the challenges, is that I talk a lot with my other friends, with other people that work in nonprofits and other neighborhood associations around here in my community. And often we actually have a perspective that's a little different than maybe what you've heard so far, meaning that we actually like freedom of transportation choice. And we think that the investments in allowing for different infrastructure, whether that be for electric vehicles, whether that be for good public transit, good bicycle lanes, helps actually give people more choices. One of my biggest challenges is my father actually has gone through some real tough things with diabetes, and he can't drive anymore. And he's in North Phoenix right now, relying on a bus to get to his work. And he is out there sitting there on, thankfully, a shaded bus stop that we could find. But there's lots of spots where we don't have that kind of infrastructure. So it feels strange to sometimes hear how this is anti-choice to be opening up more opportunities and to really be supporting more industry and more jobs too. One of the things that I saw on the electrification plan you guys are going to discuss later is the ties to the actual manufacturing and the new jobs that are going to come from that industry. I think it would be foolish for us to tie ourselves, just as many would say we would not want to just tie ourselves to the horse industry instead of going with the automobile. Let's let the market kind of figure out what's the best solution to our problems here. So really just supportive of exploring these different options and allowing the region to grow. One of the best things about the region itself is that each of the cities and the communities represented here have had the opportunity to kind of start anew from a lot of the East Coast cities where they've got a lot of things built in. So there's an opportunity here really to grow and to make a public transportation infrastructure and really just a public infrastructure in general that serves the needs of all of the residents here in the region. And I just wanted to come up here to say that there's a lot of folks that really support what you all are doing here. There's a lot of folks that are talking about how great it is to have electric vehicles. It's not partisan or political. There's a lot of friends I know from my conservative friends. There's a lot of friends I know from my liberal friends that all have electric vehicles that like Elon Musk for different reasons. And it's one of those weird things that brings people together, but appreciate the time and thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you. Diane Barker.
Good afternoon, Mayor Gallego and Mag Mayors. I'm Diane Barker, and multimodal, it feels good. Now, do I have you scared a little bit? You know, I've been tamed down a little bit to hang out behind this mic, but guess what? We can roar. And I've got like Woody Hayes behind me. You know, he believed back then in the 70s that we were too reliant on oil. And he walked to Ohio State. Oh, he wasn't a perfect person, but you know, he loved football and he wasn't out after the money. Today, everything is money, money, money. Where's the ethics? He only earned $43,000 as a coach, but he loved the game. Today, Ohio State makes what? $7 million. And that guy from up north from Ohio State makes $8 million. It's about money. Where I'm going with this, I am speaking to this information on 5H, the carbon, and also later the information on the deck park and how that figures out with multimodal. Just like Brian said, it's a choice. It's a choice. Nobody is forcing out. What is more of a determinant of behavior? Is it incentives or fear? I put for you, it's fear. And a lot of this thing getting up here and saying you're forcing me out of the car is fear, because the person doesn't either want to consider alternatives, which in some really cases can be better. And, you know, I've lived through a lot of it. This weekend when I went to the Ohio State game, I took the light rail, took two buses, was up at Cave Creek by Beardsley, went over to Scottsdale, North Scottsdale, ended up at Camelback, only to see that photo finish of Ohio State beating Notre Dame. It surprised a whole lot of people, and then calling Ohio State weak. Well, I talked to a mayor here. I says, could the football players from today that are like 100 pounds more play the winning team of Woody Hayes when I was a cheerleader in 68, undefeated national championships? And he said, no, because guess what? They were able to hit then. So they were leaner and meaner. What's happened to us and what you're hearing, don't get me out of my car in fear. It's fear because we've gotten soft, and America, you can read it, diabetes and obesity, multimodal feels good. What does that mean? You take a step out of one day of your car and find another world.
Thank you. MAG provides the opportunity for members of the public to submit written comments via the MAG website. We have a report prepared for members of the committee for your consideration, and that will be included in the formal meeting minutes. Item 4 is the MAG Executive Director's Report, but I understand we have several members who have tight constraints, and so after action items. Our next item is the approval of the consent agenda. Items 5A through 5H are on the consent agenda. Does any member of the committee have questions or requests for a presentation on any of these items? Prior to the approval of the consent agenda, we do have some public to speak on the consent agenda. We'll ask that each limit your comments to 2 minutes, and we'll begin with Jane, followed by Marie.
Hi, good morning. Thank you, Council, for listening to me. This is kind of complicated, so we printed it out. So I'm just going to read it. Thank you. Wanted to comment on item 5D, the annual public participation report. I thought it was fitting to provide some feedback on this item. Though there was some good information report, it didn't make any mention of public feedback received in regard to your public hearing rules. After MAG received a surge of public input for 3 weeks, you all changed public comment rules and stopped reading comments out loud, and eventually started cutting off public comment after 15 minutes, even though people take a lot of pains to be here. You also did provide an option for remote testimony, despite the fact that members frequently attend remotely. Your agency promotes driving less to improve air quality, and Maricopa County is huge, and it's difficult for many of us to be here in person. Also notice that the surveys you put out were not objective, with a definite slant toward questions you posed. There are some obvious ways MAG can improve your public outreach if you're serious about soliciting feedback. I know I can't be the only one who thinks this is one of the county managers. Last week's manager meeting made it clear that he thought the agency was not reaching enough people. Finally, I just want to request that you revisit your public testimony rules, especially allowing people to testify remotely. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Marie is next, followed by Carol.
Hi, everybody. Today, I'm from LL Regional Council, and actually I just came from another meeting, which was really interesting because they're trying to take our grassroots away from us. So I'm a little bit annoyed at that. Anyhow, I will proceed to read what I'm here for. I've got concerns about item 5H, the carbon reduction program. Okay, thank you. The carbon reduction program, namely that the pursuit of net zero goals is manufactured hysterics. Just last month, more than 1,600 scientists, including 2 Nobel physics latrines, signed a declaration stating that there is no climate energy and that the push to radically transform every aspect of society is happening at an unsustainable pace, unchanged and undebatable, and based upon doubtful scientist claims and unreliable models. In other words, our institution include our media are skewering actual science to push for policy that will seriously harm our way of living. In the case of the 10 millions MAGA, MAG, wants to use to build out EV charging stations, this will not be without ramifications. We should be very concerned with the simulation closures of coal power plants up north and the increase in demand for electricity, this fabrication adoption of EV. The consequences are not theoretical, as we have seen this travesty play out in other states and countries. I'm almost done. Thank you.
Carol is next, followed by Catherine.
Good morning. The federal government is enticing legislators to go along with their climate agenda by throwing millions of taxpayer dollars at them. We don't have to take that money. We can remind them that our air is fine and tell them to leave Arizona alone. Why are you pushing measures that will make life harder on us? So you get to distribute more money, which means more power for you. Is that the goal? None of the things that, quote, scientists warned us would happen about climate actually did. I've even heard of a plan to vacuum carbon dioxide out of the air. So are we going to kill plants and trees? Once light rail was extended up 19th Avenue past Glendale and Northern, the area immediately changed. It got dirty and people on drugs came through our neighborhoods. I lived at Glendale and 15th Avenue and saw an immediate change there. Some guy on drugs even walked up our driveway and tried to steal our car. He pointed a finger gun at my husband and shot, and we had other things stolen. One legislator called the light rail a money-sucking urinal for the homeless, and I would add criminals. We are not God, and we cannot control the climate. Voters ask you to not spend money to try to do that. Thank you.
Catherine is next.
Hi, thank you all. My name is Catherine Atwood. I live in Mesa. I've lived in Mesa all my life, apart from serving my country in the U.S. Army overseas and around the U.S. I love the great state of Arizona. I don't live in fear. I live in reality. I appreciate choices in transportation options. However, a couple of weeks ago, MAG approved spending $1 million to develop a regional climate action plan for Maricopa County. Climate action plan has been developed in our cities and towns around Arizona, and they all seem to have the same recommendations. Changing land use planning to force 15-minute cities, which sound wonderful until you do a little research. Include its recommendations increasing public transportation. Also sounds great, but without anyone to police it. Like the other commenter said, it makes it dangerous and unusable for the general population due to the unchecked behaviors of the riders. Wow. Okay, that was quick. Well, let me skip down to carbon reduction program is being pushed forward. We don't think that's a good idea. I would like to respectfully submit that the federal government is out of touch. We should not be supporting these extreme environmental plans, no matter how good the offer of financing sounds. The people of Arizona are resourceful and can think of better ways to deal with the problems. I am all for lacing up my shoes or hopping on a bike. But let's spend our money on promoting these things without taking our freedoms away. Please do not partner with these terrible ideas and do not take their money. You will only be receiving a Trojan horse, undermining our Arizona freedom and taking on insidious financial attachments. And I'd like to leave you with this. May the Lord bless you and keep you. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve consent items 5A through 5H?
I'll make the motion.
We have met motion from Mayor Orsborn. Second from Mayor Giles. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. We need to see the faces of everyone participating in the voice vote. This is to speed up the voting process. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on their cameras, staff will conduct a roll call vote. Staff will only call on those virtual participants who did not turn on their camera. Members, please leave your camera on until after the roll call vote so staff can count the people's names who's. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Members, please leave your camera on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor Woods, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Pereira, how do you vote? Mayor Molina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Mayor Pereira votes yes.
Thank you, Mayor Pereira. Mayor Schoaf, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we go to item 6, recognition of October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Mr. Zerker, can you please introduce this item?
Madam Chair, yes, I'd be happy to. As you all know better than I, MAG has been a leader in this for several years, this effort to combat domestic violence. And here with us today to talk about Domestic Violence Awareness Month is Kelly Williams, our Human Services Manager at MAG, and she's accompanied by Regional Domestic Violence Council Chair and El Mirage Council Member Anita Norton. Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Regional Council for having us this afternoon. The purpose of this presentation is to share information about activities related to and honoring October as National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and to invite your participation in these activities and to offer a resolution for approval. Joining me today is Anita Norton, Council Member for El Mirage and Chair of the MAG Regional Domestic Violence Council. Next slide, please. Each year, we focus on a different aspect of domestic violence. This is a multifaceted issue. This year, we are focusing on people experiencing homelessness who have also experienced domestic violence. When people are fleeing domestic violence, there may be nowhere to go if the domestic violence shelter space is not available or accessible. Next slide, please. Each year, MAG helps to coordinate regional activities, raising awareness about domestic violence. This year, we are once again asking for your support as we develop a calendar of events. Please send us information about the events you have planned. The submission form is available on our website. We also invite you to light your buildings purple. We would be happy to post any photos you can share. With that, I will hand it off to Chair Norton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Regional Council. There are many reasons why domestic violence victim does not leave their abuser. One of the major factors is their financial dependence on the abuser and not having the resources or support to escape the abuse. As a result of this, the number of those who experience homelessness is staggering as a result of fleeing the domestic violence. As you see on our slide here, a report from the U.S. Conference of Mayors found 44% of cities surveyed identified domestic violence as the primary cause of homelessness. This situation can be further complicated when the victims have to care for children and pets as well. The emergency and permanent housing options are limited, and there are insufficient resources to meet demand in our region. Next slide, please. While we have made great strides in acknowledging and identifying protective factors that can help victims of domestic violence escape the abuse and become survivors, we still need further work in getting that information out into our communities to reach those who are experiencing domestic violence, to show them a way out through existing medical, behavioral health, housing, and financial services. This is a challenge every community faces. With October as the National Domestic Violence Awareness Month, it is our hope that each of us will get involved in bringing about more awareness of the domestic violence that exists in each of our communities and promoting opportunities to help victims become survivors. Next slide. The Regional Domestic Violence Council created 2 subcommittees this last year. One is the Teen Dating Violence Prevention Group, which is working with local stakeholders and schools to try to not only teach students about what emotional and physical abuse looks like, but to prevent it from happening. The second group is the Workforce Development Group, whose goal is to help to encourage others to join the field of domestic violence advocacy. This group is working with local schools and colleges to promote curriculum to provide an entry into areas serving domestic violence advocacy. We welcome your support of this work and are thankful for the many representatives from your cities who serve on the Regional Domestic Violence Council. This is a job that requires all of us to be involved, and we appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Norton. Madam Chair and members of the council, this item is for action for approval of the resolution honoring October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The resolution is available with the materials in today's meeting. We are available for questions about the resolution or any other part of the presentation. Further, afterward, we would appreciate a photo with all of you wearing your purple today in support of the month. This concludes our presentation, and again, we're available for any questions you may have. Thank you again.
Thank you, Kelly and Councilwoman Norton, for your important work on this issue. Do we have questions? Mayor Ortega.
Madam Chairman, I believe this is at the forefront of our duty in our neighborhoods. It ties to our schools, well-being of our children, and Scottsdale joins in this community effort. We also are very close to the school component. There are approximately 220 unhoused students in Scottsdale that are living sofa to sofa or with friends or in a park or temporarily displaced, insecure because of this factor as well. So we wholeheartedly support that, and I'll be supporting the motion as it comes forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega.
Mayor Hartke. Wonderful.
I'd like to make a motion that we recognize October as Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Second.
Motion and a second. We will now have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. And we'll do a roll call for those who are not able to. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room and those online? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their cameras?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor Woods, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. We will now.
Madam Chair, if we could ask members to come here, if you and the officers could sit in the front seats and people filling around, Kelly will stage manage the photo and we'll make it available to all your cities for use on your own social media platforms as well. Thank you.
Key and who else? Harkey, and who was the second?
Peterson.
One and Peterson. Thank you.
Yeah, we got to get adult supervision. Pretty much.
Okay. What's interesting? That's funny. It did not show up that way. Do you know what they do? Sometimes? You turn on the camera and have a photo. Oh, yeah. Is that what you saw? No, you just got to complete that. Interesting. Because if you close that, the viewer, your camera's on, but it's black. The tricky. The Zoom. So if anyone wanted to call us out.
Thank you all.
Remember.
Well, thank you for that important presentation. Item 7 is the proposed sunset of the MAG Economic Development Committee. Mr. Zerker, can you please introduce this item? It is on the agenda for approval.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I probably don't have to tell you all as elected officials that one of the hardest things to do in government is stop doing something. But this is an item today where we're going to propose sunsetting a committee. As you hired me, you asked me to do some evaluation where there might be opportunities to streamline some of the things we do. And Economic Development Committee was one of those things where it serves and has served a wonderful purpose, as Sepna is going to tell you. But probably its time has come and gone, given everything else going on in your cities, in the region, and with our other economic development partners. So the EDC was created in 2010 with a 2-year sunset. It was created by the Regional Council. It was supposed to sunset in 2 years. In 2012, the Regional Council perpetuated it indefinitely. And so it needs to come back to the Regional Council as the creator, and we come back to you as with a recommendation from staff to sunset it. But as Sepna will tell you, not to do away with much of the work that's going on, but to shift it to more of the Regional Council level. With that, I'll introduce Sepna Gupta, who is our Senior Policy Manager, who has been working with EDC to run you through a brief discussion, and then we will seek a vote on our recommendation. Sepna?
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Regional Council. As Ed has said, I will present on the EDC and how the economic conditions that necessitated its formation in 2010 have changed over the years. So as Ed indicated, the EDC was formed in 2010 to address the economic issues that we were facing at the time. Conditions were very difficult, as we all know, notably in the real estate and retail sectors. The region saw high unemployment, and particularly in the real estate and construction sectors, and which had an incredible impact on retail sales. And there was also a very significant slowdown in the regional economy, the state's economy, actually. And also our relations with Mexico and Sonora were at a low point at that time. In the next few slides, I will show how things have turned around since 2010. And let's start with 2 key economic indicators, housing and unemployment. Next slide, please. So this is a reminder of where we were in 2010. This visual shows the collapse of the residential market. The region was experiencing a wave of foreclosures. Let's fast forward to 2023, and we see a stunning 97% decrease. The number of distressed properties is less than 1/30th of what it was in 2010. A lot of factors and concerted public and private action led to this improvement. And data analysis and dissemination by the Economic Development Committee was part of those actions. If we go back one more time, just to show how much that change happened, and now in 2023. Next slide, please. Let's look at residential construction. Now we're going back here to 2008 to show how much the residential construction industry decreased. Actually, since 2008, things have changed dramatically. Next slide, please. You can see here, since then, 346,000 units have been completed. Let's look at unemployment. Next slide. So here you can see that unemployment peaked at 10% in 2010. We can see how it's steadily decreasing here, and how quickly, we click one more time, see how quickly it bounced back from the pandemic-induced shock. Now we see 3.74%, slightly higher than the national rate, but that's seasonal. During the summer, our unemployment rate ticks up slightly, whereas in the rest of the country during the summer, the unemployment rate goes down. But otherwise, our indicators are outperforming the rest of the nation. So you can see how strong the economy's gotten. Next slide. So in 2010, our economy was highly dependent on the retail sector. Things have changed a lot. So if we look now at 2022, we can see how healthcare and social assistance have really become the largest employer in the region. Retail trade, of course, has grown as the economy has grown. And if you go further lower, we can see transportation and warehousing has grown as well. These changes are pretty incredible, something to be proud of. And they also show how the economy has gotten more diversified and stronger. Now, with growth in unemployment, the gross domestic product for the region has grown by 70% since 2010. And if you single out Pinal County, that growth is 80%. So the economy has is doing very, very well. Next slide, please. So this is a slide actually from our partners, the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And here we see the sectors as well as the wide geographic distribution of business locates. So these are companies and employers that have moved to the region from other parts of the US and of course from other parts of the world. And you can see here how so many have located along transportation corridors that were planned by MAG. Next slide, please. So in 2010, this is a slide, by the way, that was presented by Sandra Watson from the ACA, and she presented to the EDC in February. So this slide is pretty stunning. In 2010, we were already a key player in chip manufacturing, and this was turbocharged by the largest foreign direct investment by TSMC, but also its many suppliers. Now, this slide is actually from February. If we were to update it to now, you would see way more companies here, and it's very impressive. But what I want to emphasize with this slide is that it's not just a chip manufacturing story. Global names in automated electric vehicles, data centers, battery and energy storage, medical technology, and more have chosen the region for major investments. These wins have catapulted the region's national stature for advanced manufacturing. Next slide, please. So as the economy has recovered, our international trade footprint has also grown. Our international relationships are also thriving. Our work with Canadian partners is continuing. And over the years, that work has included collaborating on a study of Canadian real estate investment in the region during the Great Recession, to organizing delegations to Canada and welcoming Canadian delegations here. Now let's look at Arizona. So we had mentioned relations with Mexico and Sonora being at a low point in 2010. Well, under the EDC's aegis, we organized the Arizona Council meetings during the annual conference of the Annual League of Cities and Towns. And I'm pleased to report that those conferences and those meetings have been a great success. And thank you for members of the Regional Council who have spoken at them and who have participated in them. This year, we mark the 10th anniversary of the Arizona Council meeting. Next slide. And I want to emphasize that we're grateful for the participation of the regional councils and that of our partners in this event. It is a unique event, very unique event that brings together local and regional elected officials and experts from the entire state of Arizona and Sonora. This kind of event doesn't happen anywhere else, and it's taken a lot of great work and partnerships with you and with our state and regional partners and our counterparts in Sonora to make that happen. And this year's event, there were attendees who had participated in the very first Arizona Council meeting in 2014. And the picture on the upper right shows some current members of the Regional Council who were at the first meeting. So our relationship with Mexico and Sonora is stronger than ever. Next slide, please. So as Ed has mentioned, the recommended action is to sunset the EDC. However, we want to emphasize that MAG's effort in this area will continue. The region is well positioned to continue and build on the work that the EDC has done. MAG staff will continue to work with partners such as those mentioned on these slides. There are too many for me to list out, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. We can be proud of the work that the EDC has done, thanks to elected officials such as you and business and civic leaders who have served on the EDC and supported its successful initiatives. Next slide, please. In conclusion, since 2010, coordination between economic development organizations, towns and cities, and business organizations has become the norm. Economic indicators and data that were not available in 2010 and now are available on MAG's website and are accessible from anywhere around the world. They can be customized by city or town or the region or the state for that matter. MAG as an agency will continue its work in tracking and sharing economic data, carefully considering economic opportunities while planning for transportation, infrastructure, human services, environmental issues, and other agency activities. There is a lot to celebrate, and the framework and the institutions to continue the work of the EDC are firmly in place. MAG staff looks forward to elevating future economic development conversations as warranted to the MAG Regional Council and the Management Committee. Madam Chair and members of the Regional Council, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much for that excellent presentation, and thank you for all the work you have done to get our region's economy in a much stronger position. We really appreciate you and your team. With that, do we have Mayor?
You know, in our city, we have a lot of big buildings going up, but I'm trying to change the speaking points from warehousing to employment centers. And the reason why I'm trying to change that to employment centers, because most of those big boxes are actually thousands of people working in there, building something and shipping out. To me, a warehouse is something that simply just has some inventory being dropped off, somebody moving around on a pallet, putting it on a truck and shipping it out. So, you know, in the future on some of those, if we can split that out, because that's all I hear out there, you're building too many warehouses. Whoa, time out. They're employment centers. We've got thousands of people working there from building all kinds of things. So just a thought when it comes to that, because we've been trying to change that out there. Even some of our council members are still using warehouses. So I'm trying to get them to say employment centers because that's what they are. Not all of them are warehouses. So just a thought. Thank you.
Good reminder for all of us. Any additional comments?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Tega.
Thank you. Well, I consider this an exit interview, right? When you have to let go, you get a report, you see how far we've come. And I think that's really critical, and to know that the gateways for information are still there. And with that, I would move for approval of sunsetting the Economic Development Committee after its October 3rd, 2023 meeting.
We have a motion from Mayor Ortega and a second from, I guess, was Mayor Wheatley. Thank you so much. And again, thank you for the important work. We went out, I think, with a great Arizona meeting, but it was poignant to know that there were so many mayors who were there from the US who were not from our region. So we can continue that work at an even higher level with a broader table that was set thanks to those of you who were here when we began this work. We have a motion from Mayor Ortega and a second from Mayor Wheatley. We will have those participating in the meeting online take part in the voice vote by turning on their cameras and unmuting their audio. For those who cannot or do not want to turn on the cameras, we will have a roll call vote. Can I have a voice vote of those in the room? And those online, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Members, please leave your cameras on. Staff, can you take a roll call of the members participating virtually who did not turn on their?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mayor Woods, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf, how do you vote? Mayor Schoaf? Thank you, Madam Chair. The motion passes.
Thank you so much. Item number 8 is the MAG Regional Electrification Readiness Strategic Plan. In this item, we will have a chance to hear from a few mayors whose cities have internationally important investments in this area, and there are things we should keep in mind, whether we're thinking about economic development or planning our regional transportation. I will turn to one of our members who is nationally recognized for his leadership on electric vehicles, Mayor Giles.
Thank you, Mayor Gallego. I want to express my appreciation to MAG staff and to MAG for going forward with producing this plan. I think it's really perfectly fitting with what our mission is to coordinate regional transportation. This new tech is being adopted worldwide and in great at a great pace here in Arizona and across our nation. So I know that there's not in this room uniform admiration of electric vehicles, but I would just have to remind everyone that whether you like it or not, this is happening. Many of the major automobile manufacturers have already announced that they're going to be producing exclusively electric vehicles in the near future. So it's not mandatory that you purchase an electric vehicle, but I think it is mandatory for MAG to understand that we need to run to the front of this as quickly as we can to fulfill our obligation to be regional transportation planners. There are some significant challenges associated with adopting this new technology, and we're seeing that nationwide. And as Mayor Gallego indicated, I'm thankful for the opportunity to serve on the electric vehicle working group appointed by the Secretary of Transportation and Energy at a national level to talk about how we can adopt this new technology and how we're going to address the significant challenges that it's going to present. This is a very real issue for many of us. We're all in the fleet business, aren't we? Think about the number of police cars and garbage trucks, the fire trucks that you have. I'm going to tell you those vehicles over the next few years are going to be transitioning to electric vehicles. Right now in our city, we are as quickly as possible transitioning our light duty trucks already to this type of technology. And again, there's challenges associated with that. Just getting the inventory, getting the charging stations in the ground. These are all things that these are shared challenges that we have. So again, I express my appreciation to staff for to running to the front of this. This is an important document, but it's going to continue to evolve, and we're all going to need to jump in with both feet to address this challenge. The rate of Arizona is adopting this technology at a faster pace than the rest of the country, and again, I think year by year the numbers are nearly doubling in terms of registration of electric vehicles. So that's clear. That's a fact. What's also clear is that we are not adopting infrastructure at nearly the same pace that we're adopting the vehicles. So we are behind, and we are continually falling further and further behind. So I think we all need to have eyes open on this and do what we need to do at a local level and at a regional level to respond to that. There's also some amazing opportunities associated with the adoption of electric vehicle. The impact on our economy is going to be very, very significant. Mayor Gallego has talked about us being the Silicon Valley. Did I say it? I'm sorry, the Electric Valley. In my city, we are seeing tremendous investment in electric vehicle manufacturing and in the supply chain related to that. I had the honor last week at this time to be in Korea. I went there for a couple of reasons. One was to adopt a Korean sister city following Mayor Gallego's great example. But I was also very honored to be part of Governor Hobbs' team as she adopted a foreign trade office in Seoul. And while we were there, I had the privilege of accompanying her on visiting when we visited LG. I think most of you, hopefully most of you know that LG is making a historic $5 billion investment in Maricopa County in the town of Queen Creek for the world's largest battery manufacturing plant. The impact of that is going to be very, very significant on each one of our communities. It's going to be felt in each one of our communities. And so now I'd like to turn the time over to my friend Mayor Wheatley to tell us more about that exciting opportunity.
Become a very attractive location for our advanced manufacturing sector, and that will be held for industrial and commercial uses. With it, LG brings over 2,800 jobs, making it now the single largest employer in the town of Queen Creek. And the town has already begun conducting public improvements on the site, and LG is expected to break ground later this year. So we are very excited about this announcement, what it brings for not only Queen Creek, but for the region. And again, just the contribution to this plan. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mayor Osborne in Buckeye.
So I'll give you the West Valley perspective on, thank you, Mayor Wheatley, and thank you, Mayor Gallego, for the opportunity. Our West Valley perspective, an important aspect of continued electrification, I think I'm going to be repeating some of this, that's been previously said, is the availability of large-scale battery cell manufacturing. We're extremely excited that Core Power has chosen Buckeye to plant a new lithium-ion battery storage manufacturing facility. The 2 million square foot facility located near State Route 85 at Baseline Road will support up to 12 gigawatt hours of battery cell production for lithium-ion battery cells when it's fully operational. That's enough capacity to produce power for 3.2 million homes each year. That's also, I'm doing really rough mayor math up here. That is 10 flux capacitors in the DeLorean. Flux capacitors. That's not part of my notes here. And my staff is probably rolling their eyes at me right now. But and that's old technology too. Just pointing that out. The flux capacitor, not the battery cells. These cells are critical to the future of power grids, electric vehicles, and other clean energy technologies. The Core facility also plans to operate with net zero carbon emissions through strategic partnerships and solar generation. And this investment by Core is critical to our sustainability and employment goals in Buckeye and will have a significant impact on the region and state. We're talking the same number of employees that we'll have out there, and none of what we're talking about is including, I think, in either side, the customers or the vendors that will serve these two facilities. So it's incredibly exciting. And then just a little bit more before I introduce Tim Borsett from GPEC. Mayor Giles had hit on it. It is an enormous opportunity for us as a region to create these locations, these shovel-ready sites where we can plant this onshoring or this activity that's happening. And we currently, I'm just going through either the battery cell manufacturers that we're talking about or some of the other projects that we are shortlisted on, have the ability to build the energy components. So the solar panels, we're shortlisted on a few different manufacturers of that. There are places in the area that are building electric vehicles. So we do not have to rely on Detroit. And not that there is any problem with anything that's coming out of Detroit, but we have the opportunity for that right here in our valley. The storage, which we're talking about, and then energy generation on sites that are located throughout the Arizona area, many different types of sites. So incredibly exciting for us, the economic opportunities that lie ahead. We task GPEC and Tim Borsett with helping us to find those locates and bring them to the area, and they do such an outstanding job of it. So I want to introduce Tim Borsett from GPEC, who has a haircut that I admire, and hopefully he'll enlighten us a little bit about what's happened in the future of green energy.
Thank you, Mayor Osborne. Appreciate that incredible introduction. Madam Chair, members of the council, thank you for allowing me to comment on the Regional Electrification Readiness Strategic Plan. As Mayor Osborne pointed out, I'm Tim Borsett, VP of Corporate Development and Community Affairs at GPEC. GPEC is the regional EDO that works with our 22 member cities and towns, Maricopa County, and over 220 private sector investor companies to attract quality, high-paying jobs to the region. This Regional Electrification Strategic Plan is an incredible and thorough guideline to the proper implementation of EV, AV, and the related infrastructure throughout our region. Key strategies presented, such as workforce development, will better prepare residents for an emerging industry. Over the last few years, GPEC and its member communities have attracted over 24 EV, AV, and EV-related projects, such that Mayor Wheatley and Osborne just mentioned, and various EV manufacturers and EV-related projects like Proving Grounds, Innovation Labs, and Automotive Labs. Currently in our prospect pipeline, companies that are interested in the region and we're talking to, we have over 16 EV and AV prospect companies with a potential of over 4,000 jobs and $1.1 billion in potential capital investment. As Mayor Giles pointed out, regardless of your views on some of these things, it is happening. I know there was an article this week. It took about 10 years for there to be 1 million sales of electric vehicles. And then we hit 1 million in a year. So 10 years to 1 million and then a year. So obviously this is where we're going. Additionally, I know on behalf of my CEO, Chris Camacho, and GPEC as a whole, we want to applaud this committee and the MAG staff who have designed this strategic plan with extensive stakeholder input. One of the key themes, air quality, with strategies focused on fleet and transit vehicle transition to electrification and EV charging station expansion throughout the region is essential. Air quality is a crucial issue for our region. We must act now to stay within certain federal guidelines, and any negative advancement in air quality levels will have drastic effects on our business attraction efforts and prohibit essential industrial and manufacturing in the region, which Mayors Osborne and Wheatley had just mentioned. So again, we just want to applaud MAG staff. We appreciate the time and the effort that has been put into this. And again, we appreciate it. Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much for that very important update. Do any members of the Regional Council want to provide updates on important announcements in their community before we go to MAG staff? All right, then I will turn it over to Ed Zuercher to introduce the second portion of our presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the committee. I think that's a great illustration of the intersection of economic development, transportation, and as Tim mentioned, air quality, which is another thing that we're concerned about. And I think it's a good example of how the work of economic development moving to the Regional Council will broaden that throughout the region. So thank you for that. I think it's a good segue here to this plan. I appreciate Mayor Giles noting that this plan will be an evolving document. It will need to, because it's responding to the private sector, which is evolving itself. So this is responsive, first of all, to the Regional Council, which a year ago asked for an electrification strategy, as you all foresaw the onrush of uptake in electric vehicles and autonomous vehicles and autonomous electric vehicles. And so this plan was put together at your request. And I think you'll find it to be a document that will help you in your individual communities as you're making decisions, as well as here at MAG as we're dealing with federal funding. With that, I'm going to introduce Kara Nasser, who is our transportation planner, who's done this work, and she will walk you through the presentation and recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council. Pleased to be here today to present this item to you. Next slide, please. So quick overview. This again was directed by you all to us last spring. It was meant to prepare our region for an increasingly electric future. I'll just reiterate some points that you all touched on, that EV adoption is expected to be significant over the next 2 decades, and it's happening faster in this region than other places in the nation. So this study is really meant to set a framework for our future transportation electrification in this region. And that included things like a siting analysis to really identify the gaps in need that exist here and identify funding opportunities to make sure that we're being strategic about how we can get our fair share. Next slide. So this is just a high level look at the planning process. We kicked off in September of last year and we wrapped up the plan just last month. It's on your agenda for acceptance today. I just wanted to note that it was recommended for acceptance by our management and our management committee and transportation policy committee earlier this month. Next slide, please. So this was a highly member agency driven process that was anchored by your engagement in this project. We held 3 key stakeholder meetings throughout the project process. We also engaged with our utilities, APS and SRP. We really wanted to understand their current efforts and challenges and understand how we fit into that. And finally, we engaged with a number of partners. This included members of the business community, public health, technology, workforce development, and energy representatives, among others. And really, this was meant to just start building a foundation for strategic partnership opportunities. We recognize that many of the outcomes and our collective goals within this plan rest with our utilities and partners. Next slide, please. So you may recognize this slide from earlier this year. I just wanted to refresh quickly on some charging basics. There's 3 types of chargers currently, level 1 chargers. These are best suited for long-term applications because they are slow. So you can think of places like at your home or overnight lots. Next. We have level 2 chargers. These are a good balance of cost and speed, which makes them really popular for public facing applications, such as workplaces or places that you would carry out errands. Next. And finally, we have our level 3 or direct current fast chargers. These are fast, but they can be very costly. So you'll mostly find them along highways or for emergency use. Costs associated with the installation of these chargers, as you can see, can vary greatly. And these costs, I just want to note, are illustrative and they do not include operations and maintenance or proprietary costs that are associated with things like the hardware and software. Next. So as part of this study, we really wanted to understand the needs and gaps that exist in our region. So we looked a lot at demand. And we found that we are going to need by 2045, 46 to 52,000 level 2 chargers, which is at least 37 times the number that we currently have. And for direct current fast chargers, we're going to need 6,000 to 7,100, which is at least 60 times the amount that we have today. So quite a significant gap for us. Next. We also wanted to look at where we should place them. So the siting plan was identified by the Regional Council as a high priority. This was really geared at coordinating our infrastructure placement efforts and avoiding duplication. So for our approach, we looked at areas of demand. So this included things like population density, employment density, and charging gaps. The map that you see here is a result of all of the goal criteria weighted equally. But charger placement will ultimately depend on what is important within your community, so it can change based on local conditions. The top locations that we found for level 2 chargers were located in downtown, Midtown, and North Phoenix, Tempe, and Mesa. This makes sense when you think about the application of level 2 chargers, that they're suited for home, workplace, and public-facing chargers. So you can think about this as the need really exists where people live and work. Next. So we went through a similar process for our level 3 fast chargers. We did an analysis looking at the goal criteria equally. Again, I'll note that this can change based on your priorities and local conditions. The top locations we found for fast chargers were located along our freeway system, including I-10, I-17, and the US 60. This again makes sense when you consider the application of these chargers, that they work really fast while people are traveling across our region. These maps reflect high priority locations that are consistent with the goals that we got identified with the work through the member agencies in our meetings. And this is really just intended to be guidance for you all that you can consider when developing your own plans. Next. Here's a high-level look at what is included in the plan. We have best practices, market trends and future needs, member agency efforts, existing conditions, funding opportunities, and strategies. Next. I just wanted to touch on some of the strategies, feature them in our plan. So the first one is implement policies that encourage utilization of the region's clean energy resources. We found that there's a surplus of daytime solar that is ripe for supporting our charging needs. Train the local workforce and support a growing EV market. We found that there's a significant gap in our workforce currently, and as you all discussed before, that industry is growing here and we're becoming really a hotbed for it. And align regional efforts for federal grant opportunities to compete for and capture federal funding, and deploy and install infrastructure chargers that support regional plan goals. As we noted earlier this month with Management Committee and the TPC, there's an opportunity to align this work with our carbon reduction program funding. Next. So in addition to that, we looked at other funding opportunities. We found a couple discretionary grant opportunities. We have the low or no emission bus program, which I just wanted to make a note, Phoenix and more recently Valley Metro has been successful in securing. Also, we have our charging and fueling infrastructure grant program. We heard you earlier this year when you said you wanted to be well positioned to utilize this funding, and this plan does lay the groundwork for that. Finally, I just want to touch again on the carbon reduction program. This is a unique opportunity to begin implementing some of the goals in this plan right away, and also invest in addressing our air quality issues in the more immediate near term. And we sought and obtained adequate feedback on this strategy from you all through the Management Committee and TPC this month. So again, this is on your docket for acceptance today, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Kara. We appreciate all the work you have put into this, as well as your colleagues. And I want to thank the mayors who shared the really important updates. We highlighted two of the largest, but that does not mean that in any way represents the huge number of companies that are doing work. And Mayor Giles didn't fully highlight all the great things that are happening in Mesa, but there's some great manufacturing happening there that we were able to highlight during the Super Bowl, among other times. And City of Phoenix is buying charging infrastructure made in Tempe, Arizona. So it's not too bad for a commute for our final product. Mayor Wheatley.
I just have a question. As far as the charging stations that we have currently, as far as a percentage, how many are privately owned and operated versus government? Did they look into that? Do you have an idea on percentage?
I could check on that and get back the exact numbers for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Harkey.
Yeah, when we looked at this plan the first time, I was a bit of a hawk on this, and I'll continue to be, is do we, with the charging stations and everything you're talking about, what's the increased energy needs as well as the local grid? And how far are we in terms of acquiring information on what do we actually need so that we are not experiencing the kind of brownouts, blackouts that do come across our city at peak electric days? And how is, you had mentioned we're not there yet, of course, but how is that developing, and what information can you put together for us for the next presentation?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Hartke, members of the Regional Council. We have found through working with the utilities that we, right now, I think they said, on a high day, it's about 50% capacity, which sounds great. but they're recognizing that the power draw of EVs is substantial and significant. And so they're trying the best they can to get ahead of that, of course. So the truth is we just have a great need for that. And we were working with them to kind of understand that. I'll note something I noted at the TPC, but they said one of the best things we all can do is give them as much lead time as possible on these projects. But there's a lot of work being done on that front by our utility partners to understand the need and just get ahead of it.
I am quite concerned about Mayor Osborne's flux capacitor collection and when those go online.
I think you raise a good point, Mayor Harkey, that, and as we did with this plan, close coordination with SRP, APS, and maybe in some cases, the city of Mesa, the town of Wickenburg, which have their own electric utilities, is going to be critical to moving forward. The strategy was put in place in talking with APS and SRP, but moving forward, we have to continue that effort for the reasons you listed.
Madam Chair, if I could add, I had the privilege yesterday of sitting in on or participating in one of these national EV working group meetings, and the electric grid issue is not a Maricopa County issue. It is a national and worldwide issue. And so there are serious concerns about the electric, our capacity to provide the electricity that's going to make this technology work. So yes, it's an important issue here, and we do need to be working with APS, SRP, Tucson Power and Electric we need to have a plan, but we're not any further behind on this than anyone else in the United States.
Mayor Osborne.
Thank you. Just again, for the record, that 1.21 gigawatts for the flux capacitor is old technology. They're far more energy efficient now. And we're not yet building those in Buckeye, but soon. What I just want to bring up, we had talked about this, I think at executive committee, and asked the same questions about power. Not only this, but you have all these competing interests coming in for power. So as we have more of this manufacturing that's coming in, or more of the data center or whatever that is that's coming in, we're going to have to ramp up that power generation quicker and quicker. And I really appreciate the questions that are asked by this regional council with eyes on the future of, well, what does this mean from a generation perspective? What does it mean from a grid perspective? And how do we stay ahead of what is coming our way? And it goes right along with some of the questions that were brought up by the public comment, some of the difficulties that other states or locations have had in adopting some of these new technologies because they're not out far enough ahead with that power generation or the grid. So just a maybe a pat on the back for all of you. Great conversation. I really appreciate being a part of this and thinking through these long range issues that we're talking about. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Ortega.
In Scottsdale, we see an opportunity where there's park and ride locations with photovoltaics, which also can be interfaced. With that, I would move to accept the MAG Regional Electrification Readiness Strategic Plan.
Second.
We have a motion from Mayor Ortega and a second from Mayor Wheatley. Wonderful. Does everyone have the drill with the leave the cameras on? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? Turn to staff to call the rolls of those who do not have their cameras on.
Thank you, Madam
Oh,
Chair.
I'm so sorry. I forgot public comment. I'm sorry. That was a public hearing item. Is for our lawyers, should we just do it or finish the vote? Okay.
Finish the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to call on the members attending virtually. Mayor Woods, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Molina, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Mayor Schoaf, how do you vote? Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you so much. I apologize. Mayor Ortega moved so quickly. I missed Joanna. So we can take public comment now. Joanna first, followed by Karen.
Madam Chair, members of the Regional Council, my name is Joanna Strother. I'm the Senior Director of Advocacy for the American Lung Association. Every year, the American Lung Association releases a report called State of the Air, which looks at two of the most dangerous and widespread air pollutants, ozone and particle matter. Arizona faces significant air quality challenges, especially in Maricopa County. Maricopa County is the 7th most polluted county in the country. That's for ozone. Breathing these pollutants can cause asthma attacks, respiratory and cardiovascular harm, including heart attacks and strokes. Breathing in particle pollution can also cause lung cancer. Many people experience breathing problems such as chest tightness, coughing, and shortness of breath, often within hours of exposure. Even healthy adults may experience respiratory symptoms and decreased lung function. While air pollution harms everyone, it impacts are especially harmful to people of our most sensitive groups. Those are people with lung disease, such as asthma or COPD, children, older adults, and pregnant women. The transportation sector is the leading contributor to unhealthy emissions, which is why we need bold investments in zero-emission technologies to clean up harmful and climate pollution. The Lung Association's report called Zeroing In on Healthy Air found that increasing zero-emission transportation powered by a non-combustion electricity grid could yield up to $15.1 billion in public health benefits. And that's just here in Arizona between now and 2050. We hope to keep public health at the forefront of these conversations, especially for residents living in the county. Also for our low income and communities of color who are most impacted by air pollution. This plan is an important step forward to achieving clean air and sustainable future. We are grateful for the opportunity to make comment, and you already passed it. So thank you so much for adopting the Electrification Readiness Strategic Plan and really protecting the health of all Arizonans. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of MAG's Regional Council. For the record, my name is Karen Potter, and I am the Arizona representative for SWEEP, the Southwest Energy Efficiency Project, a regional nonprofit organization focusing on eliminating waste from the power generation and transportation systems. I'm also a Phoenix native and resident. And I'll just state briefly that SWEEP would like to support MAG's Regional Electrification Readiness Strategic Plan. And the transportation electrification sector in Arizona has grown more than sixfold since 2011, as Arizona holds one of the highest EV market shares in the country at 2.48%, with more than 42,000 EVs registered in MAG's region alone. As the price of EVs continues to decline at an expedited pace, it's not a question of when MAG's region will lead the nation in electrifying transportation, but when. So it's not if, but when. And it is critical for MAG to prepare our infrastructure for ever increasing number of electric vehicles on our roads. So with this in mind, SWEEP now thanks MAG's Regional Council for approving the Regional Electrification Readiness Strategic Plan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Having heard that testimony, does anyone want to change their vote? Great, thank you. Next, we move to item number 9, on which we don't have any public comment. Update on the Interstate 10 Deck Park Tunnel planning study. Mr. Zerker, can you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Noting that we are running up against time, we do want to do this very quickly. We did show this at TPC, but we think it's important for a regional view because probably everyone drives the stretch of freeway that we're going to talk about. I'm going to introduce Bradley Williams, who is our transportation engineer on the project. This is really MAG's bread and butter here, which is how do we make our freeway system more effective and efficient? And this is the most congested section of our freeway system starting to work on. Bradley?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Regional Council for this opportunity to talk about the I-10 freeway in the inner loop around downtown. This project was funded by the FY 2022-23 Biennial Unified Project Work Program, and it has been underway since last year. We're presenting this to you for 2 reasons. The first is to give you an update on some of the findings and ideas we have for solving the problems in this area. And secondly, we're just about to start our public engagement program. That program is going to be including a virtual survey, and we want you to be aware that that is about to kick off. Some of you may be hearing from us about ways to help let people know about this survey and be sure that as many people as possible can respond to it. Okay, the clicker works. Great. Okay, so as I mentioned, we have identified a number of problems. We're analyzing possible solutions, and there will be a public engagement program following this. The limits of this project begin at the Deck Park Tunnel, which you can see here on the the left side of the inset. And it runs to the mini stack interchange with the 51 and the 22, and then down to the split interchange. It also includes a section of State Route 51 between Thomas Road and the mini stack. Ed has already mentioned that this is the highest traffic volume area as recorded in the spring of this year. We have three basic steps. The first is to understand the problems. The second is to evaluate potential solutions. And the last step is to make recommendations for future projects to be implemented through the Prop 400 extension program. We've had a number of different agencies assisting us on this. I won't go through the whole list of objectives, but I will talk about some of these objectives in later slides. The first one is improving safety. We have a lot of crashes. I want to show you some statistics. The first one here is the second one down, 5.4. In the 6 years between 2016 and 2021, there was an average of 5.4 crashes every day on this section of the freeway. The red circles that you see on this map represent the hotspots where the most crashes occurred. The next number I want to share with you is the bottom number, 1.2. That's the number of crashes that create severe injuries or death every month. If you look at the map a little closer, you might see some black dots. Those black dots are places where crashes have resulted in death during the 6 years. Let's move on to enhancing traffic operations. For this, I'm going to share a couple of examples for you, and I'll go through them quickly. The first one is we're going to take a little drive from the mini stack down to Sky Harbor Boulevard, and we're just going to look at what the speeds are as we make this drive. This is coming from a simulation we have of the area, and you can see that speeds drop down very, very quickly. This happens when there's an incident, which actually is at the very bottom. And as the queues build, they move all the way upstream to create problems that affect a lot of people when this occurs. The second example I have is describing something that we call speed differential. Here you can see this is a section of the eastbound 10 at the 16th Street off-ramp. The red dots are cars that are moving very slowly. They're in the right-hand lanes. Cars that are moving faster in the left-hand lanes. When you have this differential in speeds, we have weaving challenges, sudden stops and starts. That's an incentive for people to queue jump. And now we have greater potential for crashes. We're back on safety again. Here you can see that there is a real correlation between those locations where there is speed differential and where the crashes occur. So we think if we can reduce that speed differential, we can also reduce crashes. I'm going to jump through some of this and move to our alternatives that we're looking at right now. And there are many of them, dozens of them. And I want to give you just a couple examples. This one is a situation where you have a short weave section. The traffic in this diagram is going from your left to your right. There's an on-ramp on the left. As cars get on, the traffic gets higher. There's an off-ramp on your right where some of the traffic leaves. That center section has the most traffic in this diagram and also the most weaves. And when traffic is very high, that becomes an operational problem. One solution is to switch those ramps, move the on-ramp to the right side, move the off-ramp to the left side. But when you do that, you have to elevate one of the ramps. Otherwise, they run into each other. And we call that braided ramps. So that's one solution. Another one is we have multiple lane weaves in a number of sections. That can be fixed with simply by making some restrictions, so people aren't able to make those weaves. It's another type of solution we'll be looking at. This one is a lane drop. This one, traffic's going from your left to your right. And you can see both of these are the same. There's 4 lanes, and then suddenly a lane disappears and you're down to 3. That forces people to change lanes. And there are different ways to solve that problem. On the left side, you'll see one opportunity is to just fill in that gap and extend the lane, and we call that an auxiliary lane. Another option is to remove that section of the 4th lane so that there is no requirement for people to change lanes. And the last example is we have some of these already where the HOV lanes can have a direct connection to an arterial street without passing through the general purpose lanes. So I'm going to jump through now and talk about the public engagement plan. We have a project website that will be opening up within the next few days. The virtual public survey that we're doing is going to be interesting. It has an interactive element to it, so people can look on the map and point out places where there are problems and provide their suggestions and thoughts about it. That will be coming up within a couple of weeks, and you may be hearing from us requests to help us get the word out about that. We will also have a public meeting in the winter, spring months. And that meeting will be after we've developed our draft recommendations. We'll give the public an opportunity to comment on those before they bring them through the committee process here for approval. And the recommendations from this study will be the basis for improvements funded through the extension of Prop 400. Again, we wanted to bring this to you so that you are aware of the study and also aware of the public engagement program. Madam Chair and members of the committee, that ends my presentation.
Thank you. Do we have any comments? It will be very important to us, and I appreciate the information. I also learned something from it, so thank you. Legislative update?
Madam Chair, we have no legislative update, and in the interest of time, we have no further staff presentations for you today.
Wonderful. Thank you. We appreciate you giving up your executive director update. Look forward to one next month. Requests for future agenda items. Are there any requests? Comments from the committee? Are there any announcements or comments from the committee membership? The next meeting of the Regional Council will be on Wednesday, October 25th at 11:30 a.m. with no further business.